stake. They need that oil. Yes, sir.
Is there concern that if Russia or Iran comes in and plays a major role, that they wouldn't leave?
That they
would
wouldn't
try
leave?
and take over the country themselves?
I don't think it's the risk of takeover as much as it is influence. I don't think, I don't know, I haven't given that much thought about a Russian takeover, but my feeling is they would seek to immediately exert influence and try to run as much of the country as they could. But they would want to leave it in the world's eyes in the hands of the Iraqis. I mean, Putin's a brute, but he's not stupid. So I don't think he would step in the Middle East and just pluck out a country when it's in trouble. But he could sure look like a good guy coming in to help at this time. Yes, sir.
So the people of Iraq pushed these guys out once before. What's preventing them from doing the same thing again?
You know, they're starting to right now. If you've seen some of the reversals, taking back Mosul Dam, the two cities up near Mosul Dam, just due west of Kirkuk and Erbil, and they're driving down now. I mean, that's why the beheadings have started. These guys are starting to sweat it. These little piddling, now an airstrike, if you've ever been under one, I've never been under one, thank the Lord, but I've seen many of them, and I would never, ever want to be under one. I'm telling you, the most terrifying thing I can think of, other than a round whistling in, I've heard a lot of those, but none that hit on my head. But to hear the aircraft streaking in on you, you know, and you see them roll in on you, that just sounds like a nightmare to me. And that's what, so the beheadings have started. It's going to get ugly.
Colonel, thank you for your service. Question, assume this empire is successful, this coalition is not formed to stop, and they become a caliphate, and they now have all the infrastructure from the Iraqi army. How much of an immediate military threat are they to Israel?
They're not. No, they could not. The one thing that Israel has that Iraq doesn't have is they have an amazing unity. Okay. Within their boundaries of Israel itself, they have an amazing unity. The other thing is the Arab Palestinians now could join them and say, hey, we're going to, they'd have a lot more muscle. But I'm really confident Israel's not going to let that happen. They've already said they're not going to let Iran have nuclear weapons. Israel is a little tiny country backed up against the ocean. And they don't have much for any place to go. So, and if you look at the biblical aspect of it, they ain't going to lose. So, I mean, and we've seen historically there have been three major wars.
Colonel, I'm going to take advantage of you and ask a question that's not your expertise.
Okay.
I'm going to ask what we should do domestically, perhaps in terms of argument,
Yes.
to prepare for these eventualities. Obviously, there's currently a mess, and it may be a big mess by 2016. What arguments should we make to the American people to explain to them that it's much more convenient for us to fight this war over there?
Yes.
Instead of here.
I'll tell you, the thing that excited me about coming here tonight, and I've met so many fantastic people, is you're all leaders. This is a room full of political leaders. I mean, you step out and make a difference. You wouldn't be here tonight if you were not an active part of the politics here in this county, in this state, in this country. So I was absolutely thrilled to be here. So you got a lot of influence. You're difference makers. But I would try to reduce my position on this down to an elevator speech, as the sales guys say. It's as long as you're going to have somebody in an elevator and they ask what do you think about this or that, if you can't explain it in that amount of time, and it really can be, these facts are so specific and simple. Arab Spring, Islamic extremists have been booted out. They're all gravitating there. So we know the cause. We got history on our side describing the risk and the threat. We've got a track record. We know we've already been hit. And we know it's inevitable. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. It is inevitable. And I got to tell you, I think back to your question, I just don't know. There are so many variables that they could use, and they're very resourceful. I mean, who would have thought of hijacking airliners and driving them flying those things into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. And who knows where the other one was going, the one down in Pennsylvania.
Okay, question.
Okay, you didn't mention Iran in your
Yes.
speech. This goes all the way back to Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
I mean, when the Ayatollah Khomeini flew from Paris to Tehran, imprisoned 100
And
plus,
here,
Yes, speak up.
100 plus Americans in the U.S. Embassy, and that he declared the Islamic Revolution, and it's been going downhill ever since. So what effect, and the last people I want in there is Iran.
Yes, yes.
So what knowledge do you have about Iran and what influence they have in the region?
Here's the one thing about Iran is they're very, very polarized. I mean, keep in mind Iran's 2,000-year history, and they're Persians.
Yes, you got to look at the cultural map of the Middle
Yes.
East, not the physical
Yeah,
map.
the Arabs are never, ever, ever going to get in bed with Persians.
Yeah.
Pardon the illustration. They're just not. I mean, they got two millennium of enmity and hatred. They're just not. If an Arab father's daughter came in and said, I'm marrying a young Iranian, he would just go nuts. You know, no, we're moving to North Africa, deep darkest North Africa. We'll be out of here. You know, you're not about to marry him. I mean, that would just is the worst. So Iran is fighting hard to influence Iraq.
Yeah.
They want to influence. Why?
No, there was the Iraq and Iran war. These people hate each other.
Well, here's the reason that they do. Yeah, there is that, and there's a deep divide there. But here's the thing about Iran, is they're not ruled by their president. They're ruled by this governing council.
Yes.
These
Religious.
yeah,
The state and religion are one.
Ayatollah Khomeini still rules and tells the president what to do, and he can fire him tomorrow.
That's right.
Kind of like Vladimir Putin can fire the president of Russia tomorrow.
Jim, you have a
Great
question?
democracy.
Yeah. Colonel Poole, obviously everything on the internet's true, but one of the things it said was that ISIS went to Mosul because they stole a lot of gold that was in the bank. Is there any truth that this was a gold funding run as well?
Not so much gold, it was cash in dollars, U.S. dollars.
U.S. dollars.
Yeah, 423 million U.S. dollars. It was one of the major banking deposit, the country's banks. Their banking system is very embryonic. They're trying to set up. There's no branch banking. To give you an idea where they're at in banking.
No ATMs?
No ATMs. You know, there are a couple of ATMs. There's one in the U.S. Embassy. There's one in the British Embassy. And there's one in the Al Rashid Hotel. But it only kicks out dinars.
So you get $423 million in pallets of money. What do you do with it? Who negotiates it?
Well, one thing they can do is pay their fighters. That's the big thing. Now they got currency. So now they've got one of the great things that a state has to support itself. They got capital. They also took over a major arms depot there. So now they're well equipped. They can match the Iraqi army weapon for weapon, tank for tank. So they can carry on a good fight. And they've also pressed into service a number of the soldiers who just took the uniforms off and joined them.
Colonel, can we conclude then an American policy or the administration's policy has created this by their lack of assertiveness?
I think it's the absence of, more so than, hey, we got the wrong policy, we just don't have one.
So the political decision to withdraw and keep a political campaign is
America pulled its influence out within the embassy. And don't think that every terrorist in the world didn't see that happen. They watched that on CNN and Fox News just like we did. That last vehicle going across into Kuwait, they're gone. How soon are we going to take over? That's exactly what happened.
JJ?
How do you propose solving the ISIS problem? How would you do it? How would you manage it?
If I had, remember that, what was that TV program back when I was a kid, Queen for a Day? Remember that? If I was Queen for a Day, I would rally a UN mandate, I would lead a UN mandate, and enroll Russia and China, remind them what they've got at stake, which is tremendous amount of critical needs that they have. They're drilling the oil wells in the south as fast as, or faster than Shell and Exxon are, and BP. I mean, they're there in force. Believe me, those Chinese that I was at the airport with, they were all going to the oil fields. But if you rally a UN mandate and send in not just a peacekeeping force, but to squeeze these guys down, And every time they raise their head with violence, smack them. Keep those airstrikes and be able to drop them on them. Keep the UAVs in the sky, keep eyes on them. Every time, and I would, anytime they did something like a beheading, they would pay dearly the next day. They do understand that. That's the only thing these thugs understand. You can't love them into loving you. We can't appease them into giving us peace. We can't negotiate with. If you negotiate with them, you give them legitimacy. That's all they want is legitimacy. They just want to be recognized. They're not going to stop their ways, but if they're recognized, now we get to bargain. We'll never bargain the way they do. Beheadings of children, I mean, public, air them, be proud of them, line up in the ditches, 1,700 people, and murder them at one time. How do you negotiate or bargain with people like that? Whatever deal you strike, you got to be absolutely in la-la land, because they're never going to honor it, ever. So, one way or the other, I would destroy them if I were queen for a day.
So the UN has a function in American foreign policy towards the Middle East.
Let me be sure I got your question. The UN has a function in American. The UN could have a function in the Middle East, in America's foreign policy. I do not believe that they do today. I do not think they have an effective role in the troubled areas. They're just not having influence in the troubled areas.
Have a round of applause. Let's remember, we got one more.